everybody. Welcome to another episode, another Shadowy Shadow Chats here at That Witch Podcast. I'm Danny, That Witch Next Door, and I am joined today with Ashley, of course. Ashley, say hello.
Hello, everybody. Glad to be back.
Glad to be back. Our first episode of 2022 together, right?
Sure is.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Really blasting off with Aquarius season episode.
I know.
I'm very excited. So Ashley, if anybody hasn't heard before, tell us, your big three and talk to us about your Aquarius moon.
I love it.
Start us off here.
Jumping right on in. I love it. So
yes.
I'm a Sagittarius sun, Cancer rising, and Aquarius moon. One of my favorite things that I like about my moon that I had to learn was, fun fact. Aquarius moons tend to have a really quirky sense of style, like how we dress.
Yes.
Isn't that funny? And I have such the quirky sense of style. I tend to wear what I want, how I want to wear it, like mismatched earrings, it doesn't matter. It's whatever I want to wear. And I forgot what article I was looking at, but Lady Gaga, I remember she has an Aquarius moon. And the article was comparing the different Aquarius moons. And I'm like, she is a fantastic example. Our style is very eccentric and different and odd. So I love that. Aquarius moons, Aquarius energy in general, they're unique beasts. Our lives tend to be very paradoxical because the sign is very paradoxical. It's a fixed sign, but it's all about progression and moving forward. Yes. It's all about the individual, but has this aspect of community to it. It's a very interesting sign to look at. And they also have the energy of being really detached from their emotions. Mm-hmm. My jury is still out on that. I have very close Aquarius friends. Sagittarius energy and Aquarius energy get along really well. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it is just because, in my opinion, I don't feel like Aquarii are detached from their emotions. I feel like they know how to compartmentalize. Yeah. And they also know what's important and what's actually important, a hierarchy of feeling, if you will. And I think that's why Sag energy gets along so well because, neither of those energies take themselves or situations too seriously or literally, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I completely agree with you. That was actually a little sub question that I had. That I was going to ask you anyway, so it's perfect. Because one of my biggest pet peeves in the astrological community is, any just slap on, watered down label and we walk away. And for Aquarius, that is definitely non-emotional. Non-emotional. And, one of my favorite astrologers ever, Queer Cosmos, Colin Bedell on Instagram, he said he's really specializes in relational and psychological astrology.
Ooh,
and
love it.
He talked about how, I think it was last Aquarius season. It was either last Aquarius season or the Aquarius full moon last Leo season. But he was like, I am done with this narrative that Aquarius is unemotional. Aquarius is unemotional. He was like, Aquarius, have you ever thought that maybe Aquarius is so actually accepting and so embodies their emotional experience so as not to let it control their experience?
100%.
And I was like, thank you. That is exactly, yes, that's exactly. Now, when we're talking about some shadowy qualities, sure, there can be this toxic detachment, right?
Or this wall,
Yes, exactly.
That wall between themselves and the other person or what's going on.
Yes, exactly. And so I think that one of the most important characteristics or reasons for this trait, I guess I should say, is because of that drive forward, like you said, that revolutionary, that progressive, that inner humanitarian, because you can't be bogged down by your emotional judgments and emotional attachments left and right when you have this vision and mission for the greater good.
Exactly.
Honestly.
bigger vision. Exactly. When you're planning a literal revolution, you know, Aquarius energy in general, wherever you have it, they're very much about the humanitarian side of things and sticking up for the little guy and causes and things that are important, you know?
Yes.
So with that energy coming in, exactly like you said, like, you can't be worried because Susie said your dress was ugly. They have bigger things to worry about. They don't care about Susie or the dress. You know?
Yes. This was a dynamic that had to get learned in my family.
Yeah.
My mom and sister both have Leo and Aquarius placements in very different places than one another on that axis.
Yeah.
And since that is my north node, I have that axis. You do too. We have that Leo and Aquarius axis. But I remember telling my mom at one point, not long after my sister had graduated high school, you know, she was like, I just try to protect her from the things that people could say or think about her. And I finally was like, she doesn't care about those things.
No.
She never has.
No.
She never ever. We learn from her in that way. We are trying, because that's a lesson I had to learn, is to like shed the ego in that way and let go of external validation and let go of the need of external approval, right?
Yeah.
Aquarius, to me, especially with that traditional Saturn rulership, literally, I don't have time. Like when you said that, I don't have time for this.
I love it.
No, yes.
Yeah, it's some boss bitch energy is what it is.
I am so excited to ask you this. So for me with Aquarius, I very recently came into and familiarized myself with this energy because my only placement is my 2-degree north node.
Yeah.
And so I have a very classic kind of astrological experience where most of my life I was so familiar and comfortable with my south node, and I've had to really learn and grow into and follow the calling to my north. You, on the other hand, have this Aquarius moon. You've had this very prominent energy. And so in your opinion, since you have had to really go your own way or naturally, I feel like for you it's more of this natural tendency. For me, it was a learned thing. Can you talk a little bit about what that is like for you? That the concept and experience of having to like be the black sheep, strike out on your own, go your own way, and your advice for other people struggling or going through that same thing.
Oh, God, I love it. Loaded question. So my moon and my north node are both in Aquarius, and I experience them both in very different ways. So with my Aquarius moon, people in my family, extended family or immediate, would definitely say that I was always a different child. Like from my cousins, from my siblings, like I have always been different in that regard. And when I say different, I literally mean just like beating to the tune of my own drum. I mean, everybody might be okay with like, I don't know, chicken that night. And I'm like, I don't want chicken. I'm going to make fish. Like just weird and different and quirky and odd. And as a kid growing up, I was very wrapped up into my Cancer rising. So it made me a little shy, but then like in certain scenarios and groups, that Aquarius moon would be coming up. That is funny that you mention it. So one thing about Aquarius energy, I'm tangenting a little bit, but still the same thing, is I want to talk a little bit about that individualist versus community mindset.
Yes.
The lower vibe of Aquarius, or the unevolved vibe of Aquarius energy, can be wanting to be a part of a group, a collective, so much so that you do everything involved in this group and collective, i.e. my time as a Jehovah's Witness. I was up in there Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays, knocking on doors, knowing the Bible, left to right, front to back, whole nine. I can still rattle off at least half of the Bible books by order right now.
Damn.
It's crazy. I was just enveloped in it. And I suppose I didn't think about that until you asked that question, how some of that Aquarius energy can come in, because Aquarius, sometimes, again, unevolved Aquarius doesn't want to be different. And that's when you have that whole energy of the collective. And then they find their individuality, which happened to me in my time, 14, 15-ish. I started, exploring different parts of the world and just exploring different religions and spiritual ways, if you will. So then all of a sudden the Aquarius wakes up a little bit, right? Wakes up and starts remembering their divineness, their uniqueness, and starts kind of exploding and exploring and being really okay with being different and being okay with being odd. My whole family, I come from a family of nurses and nurse practitioners and all of that. And for me to go to school for biology, they're like, what? Why? Yeah, like my grandma even still tries to get me in these weird nursing programs. And I have an associate's, a bachelor's, and a master's. And I run my own business. And, and in her eyes, I'm not doing anything because I'm not doing nursing what all my uncles, aunts, and cousins and family members have done. I've always beat to the tune of my own drum unapologetically. But it definitely took some tweaking to get in there. So as far as advice for other people goes, I suppose it's understanding what it is that drives you and really just being okay with that. We have to eventually be okay with not being liked or understood and even at times misrepresented. It kind of comes with the territory when we're working with people or talking to people, creating relationships with people. It kind of comes with it. And what I admire and love so much about Aquarius energy, it's that big dick energy. It's that I don't care. I'm going to do what I want. And it's just important to remember that we can't really care as long as we're being authentic to ourselves. We're good. And that's what it comes down to.
Yes. That's where you tap into the tendency to detach.
Yeah.
And you're like,
yeah,
it's okay that you don't like me.
Yeah.
That's okay. And that's where I totally agree. I love that you brought up the lower vibrational or the unevolved energy of this, like being like the top member of a community, even though it's not even your aligned community. Yeah. Right?
That, exactly. That energy gives Aquarius all the feels because they feel like they're a part of something. Right. It's very interesting that,
but it's not satisfying any of that individuality, that authenticity that Aquarius really protects and stands by.
The progression, the movement forward. And that was one of the things that pulled me out of the Kingdom Hall. You know, I was 14. I was 14. It wasn't my mom pulling me out. It wasn't my dad. It was me, myself, and I pulling me out. It was me saying, I don't see any progression forward. I don't see any willingness to let any other ideas in. Why?
Yes.
And that was what made me want to explore and understand why there was no room for anybody else to sit with them. I didn't understand why. And it's fascinating still to me how Aquarius energy can manifest in both of those ways. Much like Sag, you know, like sometimes Sag energy, they're like the preachiest preacher of all time with their doctrines, and they're kind of like pushing themselves on people and their ideas. The lower vibrations of all the signs are really, really fascinating because we can all see them in ourselves in one aspect or another. And we can also see how we are growing or grew or will grow out of them over time.
Exactly. That's so much of what I love about our shadow chats. That's why I love that about your content. I love that we always bring the discussion there because that is how we learn and level up. I mean, that's how we grow and learn from these things. So I've been really excited to ask you this, just as an astrologer and with your understanding and experience of Aquarius. I would love to hear and for you to offer everybody how you interpret the co-rulership of Aquarius, because it's my favorite one. So if you all don't know already, or if some of you don't know, Aquarius is traditionally ruled by Saturn before Uranus was discovered. And in modern astrology, we say that Saturn is ruled by Uranus. A lot of us, Ashley and I both, we do co-rulerships where I don't eliminate the traditional ruler. I bring them together. And most co-rulerships make a lot of sense to me. And this one is fascinating to me. And so I would love to pick your brain on this.
Yeah. So, okay. So we'll start with Uranus because that's easier.
Yeah, exactly. That's what's so fun about this.
I know,
I can't believe they had, it's just funny that they, in traditional astrology, they didn't have the co-rulership. I'm like, if only you knew.
If
what
only
was out
you
there.
knew. Yeah. So, Uranus, I love to say Uranus is the mad scientist of the zodiac. Uranus loves to flip things on their head and look at them differently. And what happens if I mix this with that,
Yes.
And in relation to Aquarius energy, it's all about that progression forward. Technology, Aquarius is the sign of technology. And, always moving forward and looking into the future of what else can I create, And that goes back to us being in this or moving towards the age of Aquarius and the age of technology. That's a whole nother wormhole. But anyways, so that's kind of the connection between Aquarius and Uranus, that movement forward, being different, being an individual in technology. And then you have Saturn, right? So Saturn, we've got Father Time. We've got this planet of discipline, of being quite stern, of time limits, of rules. Right. And then we have Aquarius, who does not play by the rule book. Aquarius doesn't even know where that shit is. But this is how I combine them. We forget that Aquarius is fixed energy, hence being so paradoxical. Aquarius is all about, and the modalities. So we've got cardinal, fixed, and mutable. And fixed energy is all about being in the constant area of building, always creating and building. I feel like Saturn gives Aquarius that drive to continue. Like Aquarius is always reinventing itself. And for somebody with a lot of Aquarius energy to be constantly doing that takes a lot of energy and a lot of dedication and a lot of time and a lot of work. So when you put Saturn in there, it's all about that grit. Saturn gives Aquarius that grit to continue that reinvention and to continue to move forward and also to play by Aquarius's own rules. If you think about it that way, Saturn is about the rules, but Aquarius makes the rules. So if Aquarius is making the rules, then Aquarius can play by the rules.
Yeah. Ooh, I like that.
You know what I mean?
I like that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what Aquarius wants to do. It's the individual. The Aquarius is setting the tone for everybody else, for the sisterhood, for the brotherhood, for the collective, for the community. Aquarius is like, look at me. This is how you should be doing things because I know what I'm doing. I know, key word for Aquarius energy, So like when they're doing that, when Aquarius energy is doing that, they are creating this rule book that wasn't there before, reinventing it over and over and over again. So in a really weird way, they do get along, they work together, but not in a way that you can just see with the naked eye like you can with Aquarius and Uranus.
I love that. It connects very interestingly to how I see this. This is really interesting. So again, Uranus and Aquarius, I completely agree with everything that you said.
Yeah.
My biggest thing is like unexpected change. There's like, especially when things get stagnant.
Yeah.
When things have been the same, like you said in your experience, like this isn't forward. This isn't forward. And that's why we have these like lightning bolts from Uranus.
I mean, look at Uranus and Taurus right now. That unexpected change around our government and money and all that.
And all our resources.
It's been a wild ride.
Everything happening at the ports. Yo. I was like,
a wild ride.
Can you tell we've been in Uranus retrograde? We're just out of everything.
So long.
Yeah, I know. And we finally are direct or go direct. And we just did.
We'll be going direct or we just did one of the two.
Back retrograde in August again. So here's my thing with Saturn. I feel like it is that important lesson. It really represents that important lesson in questioning authority.
Yeah.
And going against the system. I think that Saturn and Aquarius need that. When you said the word grit, that's what really connected it for me. That's what I see is that little bit of that tension and that friction, but it gives traction.
Yeah.
And that,
yes.
That is exactly how I see it.
Yeah.
Saturn does this like dad thing. We know that.
Yeah.
Saturn does this dad thing. And Aquarius is very much meant to rebel or question that or go against that. And not, we're not ever meant to just like, even the universe is imperfect. We're never just supposed to just accept everything, right? But these Sagittarius and Aquarius really, and Gemini really teach us this. Don't give up learning. Don't give up curiosity.
Right.
Aquarius takes those to an even further level and exactly uses that to do something for the greater good.
Right.
And I think it's the reason we have revolutions against corrupt leaders. And, and like really how we're able to see and question and break through toxic Saturn authority. If you, you know what I mean?
Toxic Saturn authority. Yeah.
I love that though. And you said that grit and that's exactly, I see their friction between them actually giving Aquarius a lot of forward motion.
Exactly. Yes.
I love that. Yes. I love that. And honestly, y'all, that's fucking Saturn's point. Stop shitting on Saturn.
That's Saturn's point.
It's supposed to be that hard. It's supposed to give you
Saturn will always have all my things. I like
Same.
Saturn. I love Saturn's energy. And I'm here for it. I'm here for all of it.
I am a Leo rising, so I'm a sun-ruled baby. But Capricorn rules my 5th house where Saturn is for me in Capricorn. So my weekends, my Saturdays, Saturns, and my Sundays, I do so much specifically rejuvenating work with Saturn. Very, I could not agree more. Really, don't run from your Saturn work, everybody.
For real. I love it.
Now,
love it.
To transition into something very, very fun that I'm so excited. Listen, we can't even talk about Aquarian energy if you don't bring up extraterrestrials.
Ooh,
we have to.
Yes.
We have to. Because, really quick, we're going to pause before I pick Ashley's brain about this. And I'm going to shift and let Ashley talk to you because speaking of Aquarius and the age of Aquarius and all things astrological and starseed, Ashley, you have your own podcast now.
I do.
And we would love to hear a little bit about this. And the Starseed is really what inspired my next question that I will have for you.
Yes. So my business name is StarSeedShadows. I identify as Starseed, and obviously we'll be talking a little bit more about it. The podcast is called The Goddess Complex. And inside my podcast, we talk all different things. We go Lightworkers, astrology, tarot, aliens, conspiracy theories is an area we're going to go into in depth because it's one of my favorite pastimes. Try not to go too deep into them because then you get a little lost in the sauce. But I like dabbling. But yeah, the Goddess Complex is great. You guys should definitely go listen. New episodes every Thursday, minisodes every Monday.
Yes. And Ashley already has a good little handful up. So if you haven't already, go binge
Check
this
me
weekend.
Out.
Yes, because you're all listening to this a few days before the new moon. The new moon in Aquarius is on Monday, January 31st. And this is coming to all of you Friday, January 28th. So sink in to this Aquarius new moon energy and go binge Ashley's podcast. I loved your Age of Aquarius episode. I think that was your very first one, isn't it?
My first one was Jupiter and Pisces.
The second one then is
the second one was the 2022, really the Age of Aquarius. Yeah, because it's a buzzword right now.
Yes,
shadow work, the Age of Aquarius.
I was applauding through the whole episode.
Yeah, it's a buzzword. I'm like, can we get some clarity on this? And again, that Sag Sun is going in overdrive. Like everybody's saying it, but nobody knows what it means.
Yes. Yes.
So I had to, just do my own research, of course, and then just kind of spit it back to you guys in a way that's fun and light and cool. And you guys leave with a greater understanding of what it means to be in this time, this very, very influential time that we are living in right now.
Thank you. It really is. It was such an informative episode for something exactly that is such a buzzword and has been so clouded and confused and misunderstood. And I felt like it's an episode that will make sense to a very beginner, a very seasoned astrologer, and provide a lot of clarity. Because if you are an astrologer, I mean, even if you're not an astrologer and you don't see that we're living in such a historically significant time right now, your eyes are not open.
I don't even watch the news. And I know we got some shit bubbling.
Right, exactly. And so this knowledge, not to get so cheesy, but knowledge is power. Like
knowledge is power. I love cliches. I always say this. Cliches are cliches for a reason.
There's
a reason why we say these things.
Thank you. Exactly. And honestly,
So.
with this big ass heavy retrograde year that we have, this is a great time to learn, relearn, and relearn again. Review it and then relearn it again because knowledge is power right now. So speaking of knowledge and really getting into extraterrestrials and aliens, let me give you my very brief, almost non-existent background. I find alien fascinating. The whole entire subject. I am absolutely somebody that I follow a lot of people that do a lot of channeling and a lot of communication. I personally have not. I have a Pisces moon, so I do lots of dream work, lots of astral projection. But it is in this very grounded way. I do a lot of earth walking, I would say. Honestly. So I don't know that much other than fun, random, I'm too stoned, falling down a couple episodes of Ancient Aliens, and that leads into YouTube once in a while. But I need to know, what is your background? Tell us a little about being a starseed, and honestly, maybe even bust a couple of myths along the way if there's anything, you know, that people kind of get on their soapbox and talk about aliens, and maybe we can shed some clarity there.
So I'll preface this by saying I plan on going super in depth on everything I'm about to talk about on my podcast. So I'm warming you guys up right now. I'm warming you guys up to my vibe with the episodes that are out currently. As far as starseed, right? We hear that word. What is a starseed? A starseed is someone who A, recognizes their multidimensionality, and B, recognizes that there is more, that they've had a home other than Earth, whether they have seen visions of this home, had dreams about this home, or multiple different kinds of homes. It's a very esoteric concept, and you kind of have to know what you're looking for when it comes to finding information on this topic. It's not just going to show up in a Google search. You have to literally Google search Starseeds. You got to know. As far, Rebecca Campbell does a lot of really great work on starseed work, and she's a pretty famous oracle author. She's written some books. She's fantastic. So my background, like I've told you guys many times, you know, I've always felt out of place. One of the biggest characteristics of starseed is feeling out of place, black sheep. This doesn't feel right. Literally from the time that I was young, there was this yearning of just wanting to go home is the best way I can explain it. I mean, hands and knees, praying to God, wanting to go home. And we're not talking about dying. We're not talking about suicide here. Just knowing that Earth wasn't my home. It's really weird to explain. The first time I heard the term starseed, I was around 16 or 17, and I was like, starseed? What's that? And then I go down this Google train. And before this, let me backtrack. I thought maybe I was an angel. And I was like, maybe I am a fallen angel, an earth angel, one of the chosen. Many different Christian religions have different numbers for it. The witnesses have 144,000. So I was like, maybe that's it, you know? I just knew. And mind you, you all remember what it's like being 14, 15, 16. People aren't having thoughts like this. They're not going deep like this at that age, you know? So again, just showing the weirdness of myself always from a young age. So I come across the term starseed and I'm like, okay, all of this sounds like me. Okay, cool. And then I end up going to college, you know, kind of do that for a while. Reconnecting in my college, I did a lot of travel, and there was a big reconnection that I had with Pachamama, with Gaia, during my experiences at SUNY College of Environmental Science and Forestry, whether that would just be hiking barefoot, taking time alone, and just being with the earth, connecting back with trees, all of that. And I believe that's why that school came into my life, because just the reconnection and the downloads that came through getting back in tune with the part of me that is earthly was beautiful and profound. And it was amazing. And then, so during that, I come across a witch, and at a party or something like that. This happened to me twice. This first time, this witch called me out as Starseed. She called me out as Lyran Starseed. And I was like, okay, well, I knew I had Starseed lineages, you know, thank you for this information. And I kind of took it and put it in my back pocket. So this whole time I'm putting this information in my back pocket, but I'm not really doing anything about it. You know, I'm kind of living life. if you will. And then it was about, I'm 32 now. And it was in the middle of my Saturn return because I was still with that crazy ex. So probably somewhere around 28-ish, 29-ish. Another witch comes around me. I have no clue that she's a witch at all. Nothing. And we're all going back to my house for an after party. And we're hanging out, and she's like not really partaking in any of the booze, and I noticed it, but I'm like, whatever. And we end up in my room, and the door is shut, and she goes, "Hello, my fellow Lyran sister. It's so nice to meet you." Out of fucking nowhere, I kid you not, true fucking story. And I'm just taken aback.
And she's not even drinking.
She's not even drinking. She's not partaking in any of the fun activities. I'm over here like half cocked, right? With like probably like a 40 in my hand or something. Who even knows at that time?
Hello, my Lyran sister. And you're like, me?
Like, literally. The fucking stories in my life are outrageous. So I'm like,
that's the Sagittarius part.
Literally.
Your Aquarius moon's like, are you fucking kidding me right now?
Literally. I like stop. I'm like, I was told I was Starseed before. And she's like, you are. She's like, you're from Lyra. I'm from Lyra. I can see it in you. And she was also a medium. Within that conversation, she also verified herself, which she didn't have to, and told me things about myself that she would not have known. Things that only myself and my mother know that she pulled out in that moment. And I was like, fuck. It was shortly after that I started StarSeedShadows. So, you know, and since I started StarSeedShadows, I'm a channeler for anybody who doesn't know. So I work in the Akasha. And that was another thing too. You know, I was getting pushed by my guides to work in the Akasha. Like it was pretty aggressive. Like last year, it was like, learn the Akasha, work in the Akasha. Like you need to work in the Akasha. So I'm like, okay, let's learn the records. Okay. And literally in real time, I am finding out how the Akasha is such a bridge to your star family. And I've been reconnecting with my star family for like the past year and a half or so. So I identify as Lyran Starseed. I directly work with the Pleiadian Council of Light within the Akasha. So the Pleiadians are another Starseed race. Okay. So sorry if I'm going too fast, listeners. There's a lot here to unpack. So
I find this fascinating.
Isn't it though?
My Gemini Mars can like catch on, like be on the same speed usually. Yeah. And I just like gobble this stuff up.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating. And mind you too, you know, over the years, I have had those visions and those images of like different planets, specifically one that is Lyra. It's been verified by other Lyran starseeds that I've spoken with and, you know, asking them to describe the water that they see. And they're seeing this same black water that I'm seeing, right? It's like, I can see it in my head now. And I've had one specific guide that's been with me since I was a child. Like literally, I cannot remember life without this specific guide that has been with me. Can't remember life without this person or this being, I should say. And I did a past life regression and got a lot more clarity on who this soul is. I call this soul a him. And it's one of my Lyran guides that's been with me since forever. And he showed himself in that past life regression, as well as me having this like deep regressional experience inside of Lyra. Like it was almost like I was going back to these dreams that I had over all these years and these images, right? It was wild. And at the end, the person who did my reading, she's like, you understand you're a channel, right? And I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, I've worked with tons of channelers. This was all channeled information. You're a channel. Watch it back. And that was kind of like when I accepted that all my downloads and things that are kind of coming through and to when I say channel, I mean that when I'm in sessions sometimes it's like the words are just kind of coming. Mm-hmm. The feelings are just kind of coming. And you know, and I mean that for anybody who's like listening,
yeah, exactly.
Who aren't sure what channel is.
Right.
That's what it is for me. And so creating these connections with the Pleiadian Council of Light. So I'm trying to think of where to go. The Galactic Federation, let's start there. Mm-hmm. So the Galactic Federation.
I was going to specifically ask for more clarity on that. So yes.
Yeah. So anybody who's listening to this podcast should be comfortable with knowing and understanding that we are not the only ones out there. It is quite foolish to think that we are. And the one thing I love to say is, you know, it's interesting that, you know, we believe in science and we believe in proving things and theories and all of that. But it has been ingrained and indoctrinated in us that in this never-ending solar system, that we are the only forms of life. When you say it like that, it sounds stupid as fuck. And it almost sounds like a cover-up. Not to get too much into conspiracy theories, but like, literally, like, we're America or we're humanity. We believe in science. We believe in evolution. Evolution is a thing, sure. We believe in all of this, but we're going to indoctrinate these people by saying we're the only ones. And if you believe in ETs, extraterrestrials, and aliens, then you're foolish, you're silly, you're stupid.
Right.
It just mind boggles me. It mind boggles me. So the Galactic Federation is a federation of tons of different alien races. So I've heard different numbers about the different alien races that are out there. The number that comes up the majority of time is 22, that there's at least 22 alien races within the Federation. There are probably thousands, if not millions in general in the solar system. This federation is said to have been created to keep everything together, if you will. It's almost like the UN of space, you know? And within this federation, a lot of the different star races a lot of people know are the Pleiadians, the Arcturians, the Reptilians, the Andromedans, the Lyrans, and there's a bunch more. These races range in different frequencies, if you will, and these races have been coming back and forth to Earth for fucking eons. There's a bunch of theories about the jump in our evolution having to do with alien DNA. It's a whole nother conspiracy theory, but the gist of that is there is, and this is not a theory, this is what's been shown in the science, there's a huge jump in our evolution and scientists can't figure it out. Mm-hmm. They can't figure out what happened there. But even Darwin, in the last chapter of his famous book, he says that there's still something that he's missing. His theory is pretty like sound, but there's still something he's missing. So a lot of, you know, theorists, you can see stuff on Ancient Aliens about it. I know it's a controversial show, but I have done a lot of fact checking on them. You can read about this. Yeah.
Let me give everybody one quick point of reference to back this up. Mm-hmm. I am a big ancient history nerd. Like, I love learning about ancient history. And I fell down a rabbit hole and needed to understand, this was a couple years ago, I needed to know when we went from like these nomadic, quote unquote, uncivilized, right? Like hunter-gatherer into this civilization. I needed to understand. And we can trace things to the agricultural revolution, but we don't know what triggers any of this. We don't know where the knowledge comes from. And let me put this into perspective for you guys. And again, this is not woo-woo. This is verified public information.
Yes.
We were in the Paleolithic era when we are quote unquote cavemen, okay? Uncivilized, like our brain activity, we functioned and only developed to like nothing. Like our brain was not even close to what we have right now. We were in the Paleolithic era for 2.5 million years. And then we have this slingshot that brings us to only potentially around like 14 to 20,000 years ago. Do you see how big of
it's a huge gap
difference? And when I learned that's what Ashley's talking about. Just to give you guys, when scientists talk about we don't know where that come from, I'm trying to give you a timeline to understand how massive this jump in intellect and brain growth, everything, technology, it was
everything just blasted the fuck off and nobody knows why.
Insane. Yes.
It is. You know, and so that just goes to show, again, Age of Aquarius, this is about creating space for other ideas, other ways of being, other ways of evolution, how things came about. What sucks is we have generations upon generations upon generations of indoctrinated stuff in our head. This is how things happen. There was Adam and Eve. Even if you don't consider yourself religious anymore, you can still find remnants of some of those religious doctrines in many different things that you do. It's just kind of how we are. And this is, you know, we're talking about generational stuff now. And my point in saying is a lot of what we're talking about is probably very esoteric and out there for a lot of people listening. And they're probably like, oh shit, like this is some wild shit. It's not really that wild when you break it down. When you really do the research and when you really like start looking at who we are as a species and start really looking at what you were taught in grade school versus what's out there now, what I'm saying is not that far-fetched. And the modes of communication, like telepathy, for example. And the reason why I bring that up is because channeling, I believe, is a form of telepathy. It's a form of it's connecting with other beings who are higher vibrational than you are right now. Mm-hmm. And when I bring that up as well, there are many different vibrations to these beings. So the Andromedans, for example, are known to be one of the higher vibrational beings. And when aliens, ETs, do connect with us, they have to dumb down their vibrations to meet us where we're at. It's said that the Pleiadians, the reason why they're such a buzzword right now in this community, and a lot of people have had contact with them, is because they're like the closest to us, dimensionally speaking.
Okay.
And also looking like us, speaking as well. Then, they're, so that's number one when it comes to that. I'm trying to think, what else did you want to know? There's so much, we can go in so many different places.
Yeah. So, and exactly. And honestly, I don't think this will be our last conversation about this.
No.
I just find it so fascinating.
Yeah.
One question I want to make sure to ask you is, I want your views and potentially insider advice on the people that gain and understand this knowledge and then spiritually bypass their earthly experience with it and encourage others to totally bypass and unground themselves and
I see what you mean.
Know what I'm talking about?
Like a Pisces overload.
An escapism, yes, where it turns into, because I know, I've seen on platforms, I've known a couple in the past, like people that get so wrapped up in their downloads and channels that where is the application? Where are you moving forward in this life?
Right.
What are you doing? So can you tell us, when you gain all this knowledge, when you learn, what can we do with this?
Yeah.
What can we do with this information that's not going to spiritually bypass Earth School, I guess?
So there's 3 points I want to bring up. The reason why we're even having contact, the reason why this is even a thing, is going back to, what you said, the agricultural revolution. Somewhere along the lines, we lost our way. Somewhere along the lines, Earth lost its way. We started overusing resources, not to be all biblical, but, like man against man, as in, lots of war, killing, fighting, famine, like all of that. I think anybody listening or even not listening can agree with me. Our current timeline, this ain't it. Everything that's happening with Earth, this ain't it. And when you look at the dramatic increase in Lightworkers and Starseed and people here, right, doing this sort of work, creating podcasts for people to listen to and educate themselves, creating books, working with the tarot, talking loud. Oh, God, I'm ringing. Okay. Anyways, talking loud and openly about their intuitive gifts and saying, you know what, I'm a medium and I don't care who says something about it. None of this is happening on accident. Going back to the Galactic Federation, it was almost like Earth put out a call like, hey, shit is going to the left right now. And I need it to not go to the left. And that's when a lot of Starseeds decided, okay, let's go on to Earth School. We can go deeper into this, but essentially Starseeds started literally seeding themselves here to help facilitate this change in the timeline shift. A lot of people listening may have heard of the New Earth, right? Trying to shift the consciousness level up. We're moving from 3D to 4D, from 3D to 5D. A lot of people have heard about that, but they don't know what it means.
What exactly?
It literally means we are moving from 3D consciousness to 5D consciousness. We are leveling up our consciousness overall. As a collective, it's not enough that just I'm doing it. It's not enough that just you're doing it. It's not enough that we're blessing others with this knowledge. This is a fucking group effort that I've never seen one. It takes everybody doing this work. It takes, if you have an inkling that, hey, you know, I've been seeing shit for fucking ever, but I don't want to tell anybody. It takes everybody to do this sort of work. And there are light workers in this group. There are starseeds in this group. There are empaths in this group. There are mediums in this group. All sorts, we all have different jobs. And that was one thing I wanted to note too. Just because I'm on here saying I identify as Starseed doesn't make me any better or less better than anybody else. It means my job is different. That's all it really means. You know, it means I may need to connect with others in a certain way. That's all it really means. And for some of us, we learned really early in life that we were odd, different, and weren't kind of really sure how to like fit the puzzle piece together. And for others, it may have happened when we're older in our 40s or 50s. There are some people that are here to help get babies into this world, being doulas, you know, and getting rid of these epidurals and these other ways that women are having babies. You know, I am not a mother, so I don't know how that works. But like, all I'm saying is we all have different jobs, right? And it's so important. The reason why we do this and we have this knowledge is to sit in the pocket of our job. So to answer your question directly, they did not understand the assignment. This escapism thing that is happening with a lot of these starseeds, I get it. Earth school is hard. I get it. I get that the duality that comes with being here is hard. I get it. And I get, you know, you have something good and then you have something tragic. You know, you've got people you love and then they turn on you. Like, and sometimes it's like, what the fuck? Like, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. I've been there before. But the thing about it is, it's not about us. It's about the earth, and it's about the beings living on earth. It's about humanity and all the other beings living here. And it's about getting the trajectory of earth on a better timeline than it's at right now. Because right now, the powers the people and beings that are in control are in control. They are doing things for their own will to survive, and they're doing things without much regard for any other being or entity living. And it is about time that people understand that there is so much more to this world than just our 3D selves. It's much bigger than we realize. Ghosts are real. Fairies are real. Aliens are real. And that's just as a matter of fact. People can take it or not take it, you know? It is what it is.
I love this so much because, again, a lot of people, myself included, have come across, and I'll be honest, I have found this way more on Facebook. And ever since I really got off Facebook, I don't see this that much on Instagram. So it's been a while since I've seen a lot of this toxicity, but I used to, on a very daily, regular basis, come across people literally using the term ascend to 5D to completely bypass very real earthly problems that deserve our energy
and those are the people
and action.
Right.
Exactly.
And those are the people we need to be fearful of and worrisome of, because those are the people that may not be as, quote, woke as they are pretending to be, because it would never come out of their mouths. This
is why a legit spiritual leader will talk to you about dualities like this.
Yeah.
And they will talk to you about both being rooted and anchored and being open and connected, because that's very similar to how, I have a theory, and I've really let this branch from, again, my silly, like, Stony Nights on Ancient Aliens with lack of research. This is very intuitive based. I am very called, and I work with deities. I'm a very pagan witch. I'm a classic
I love that about you.
Pagan witch. But I have always really, because my husband asked me one time, what's your theory? How do you explain that? All the different mythologies and different deities and alien. And I was like, I think that because we create our own reality, we bring those things into existence via our belief alone. Right. And B, I think that they're all versions of each other.
They are.
That's what I've always, so I call it, when I do my mindfulness work, when I tutor in witchcraft and manifestation, if you're a client of mine, you know that I refer to this as plugging into the network. And that's channeling to me, where it's like hopping in, like, and you can call who you need to call, and And that's why you go in there with boundaries. It's kind of like going into the dark web.
Yeah.
You got to kind of know what you're doing.
You bring up a great point, though. You can channel whoever and whatever you choose to channel. It's not just Starseed stuff. You know, when I was working heavily with Lilith, which I still do, I was totally channeling Lilith when I was working with her constantly. Right. You know, so yeah, great point to bring up. Channeling it's not just for one certain set of people.
Exactly. And we do see people, spiritual people who, again, I'm so glad you said that will refer to themselves as these woke people.
Yeah.
That use their abilities like channeling to continue the distraction.
Yeah.
It keeps the matrix. It keeps us all with a lot of blinders on. And this is why I popped off a couple episodes about the impersonators on Instagram, the spiritual impersonators, because
spiritual impersonators is a thing. Yeah,
it is. It's huge right now. Spiritual scammers have been around since the dawn of time. People, you know, playing off of your spiritual beliefs and exploiting them. But this, I think, as we ascend and embody and embrace our spiritual expansion in these coming years, which is years, decades, centuries, quite honestly, as we're growing into that. I love that you brought that up on your Age of Aquarius episode. I tell people all the time, I'm like, we've got a few.
We got a long time. You better sit down and buckle up.
Got
Get some popcorn.
But this is why it's so important to be vigilant about who you're working with, where you're getting your information, what you're consuming, what you're believing, because if you believe it, you bring it into your reality.
Yep.
Really. And so I really would love to end on your recommendation because I know what we're going to get asked right after this episode. Number one, everyone is going to run over and listen to your episode about this when you release it. But can you give everybody some of your favorite resources or just a good place to jump off into some research for those, I think, some starseeds that you might awaken with some of the knowledge that you shared today?
Yes. Well, I will say I do offer a Starseed magic activation session.
There you go.
So there's
link that.
And yes. And you can use astrology to look for your star family. And so I've done that a lot in depth. I'm really good at it, obviously. So you can check that out. Within that session, we would look at your birth chart, look into your starseed origin, and then we'd also open up your Akasha and see who's peeking around in there. So that's fun. Like I said, Rebecca Campbell, Letters to a Starseed, beautiful book. Now, this next book, The Sophia Code, it's by Kaya Ray. It's Kaia space RA, Kaya Ra. The Sophia Code, woo! That's a wormhole. Amazing book to look into. As far as on IG, Elizabeth April does fantastic work. And so does The Sacred Hustle. Erin, The Sacred Hustle. She does fantastic work as well. They both work in the same fields that I do. Erin does these amazing light code activations. Literally, you feel blasted off afterwards. And Elizabeth is just a plethora of knowledge. And at this point in her journey, she's being downloaded pretty aggressively. And she has a great book that I haven't read yet, but I hear it's really good. It's on my list. So yeah, those are some references. You guys can always look at my content. My content's very Starseed focused as well. Obviously, StarSeedShadows. And yeah, if any of this information like resonated, it's worth going down the rabbit hole a little bit and seeing what's out on the other side. You know what I mean? So none of this work is going to scare you. It's everything we do is out of fear or love. Everything goes back to those two emotions. And when you start getting into the really esoteric aspects of spirituality, you start questioning things. And when you question things, that's when you know you're on the right track. When you're like, this feels really weird and out of my comfort zone, keep fucking going. The rabbit hole gets deeper and darker, but there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes. I love this for a Friday episode and heading into the weekend with this. Get cozy, get your phone out, order a book, or fall down the rabbit hole, because seriously, this was just fascinating and so mind-opening. I love this so much. Ash, before we go, will you tell everybody, especially for any new listeners that were here today, where we can find you, follow you, and support you?
Yes. So StarSeedShadows is my IG. My YouTube is also StarSeedShadows. And then my podcast is The Goddess Complex on Spotify and Apple and all of that. Everything is StarSeedShadows. TikTok, website, whole nine. So I'm very, what's the word I'm looking for? Personable. Feel free to DM me, chat if you have any questions. I'm very much an open book and nobody's ever bothering me. So. Yeah.
Yay. And we love having you here. This was a good one. Yeah. Thank you for joining me for this one. I loved this. Love. Everybody go over, listen to The Goddess Complex, follow Ashley. This was amazing. Thank you for joining all of us, you witches and starseeds out there. Stay safe, have fun, and always stay magical out there.